You know, we walk on pavements every single day. We drive on roads, we hang out in public parks, and we pretty much just assume they're safe. But what happens when they're not? What happens when a nasty pothole or a cracked paving slab causes a serious accident? Who's actually responsible? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive right into that, focusing specifically on your local council. So let's start by looking at what happens when a simple, everyday accident might actually be much more than just a bit of bad luck.
I mean, really think about it. That pavement you use for your daily walk or the park where your kids play, the local council is supposed to be looking after them. So what if their failure to do that is the very reason you get hurt? Can you actually hold them accountable?
And look, we're not talking about some kind of freak accident here. These things happen all the time. Maybe you've had that heart-stopping moment tripping on a pavement slab that's sticking up, or you've gone flying on an icy path that definitely should have been gritted. Maybe your car's suspension got wrecked by a massive pothole, or you got injured at a council-run gym or park. These are the exact real-world scenarios we're going to get into.
So, the big question, can you claim compensation from the council for these kinds of injuries? Well, the short, simple answer is yes. Absolutely. The law is set up to allow you to hold them accountable.
But, and this is a really important but, it's not quite that straightforward. Suing a council is a different beast altogether. It comes with its own unique set of legal hoops to jump through. Let's break down exactly why that is.
To really get why this is so complicated, we need to wrap our heads around a key legal idea: the council's duty of care. Honestly, this is the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
This duty kind of splits into two main parts. First up, you've got the common law duty. You can think of this as the basic rule that applies to everyone. You've got to take reasonable care to not cause harm to other people. The council has this duty, just like you and me. But then there's the statutory duty. These are specific jobs given to them by the law, things like the legal requirement to properly maintain public roads.
And a really good example of one of these specific duties comes from the Occupier's Liability Act. This law basically says that because councils occupy certain spaces, they're legally on the hook for the safety of those places. We're talking about your local park, the library, the swimming pool. If the council runs it, they have a duty to make sure it's reasonably safe for you.
Okay, so this brings us to the biggest challenge, the main hurdle you'll face if you make a claim. It's the council's go-to argument, and it's known as the reasonable care defense. Now here's the crucial part. Even if there was a hazard, and you were injured by it, the council might still get off the hook. How? They have to prove that they took all reasonable steps to make sure that road or pavement wasn't dangerous to begin with.
And that, right there, changes the whole game. The legal fight isn't really about the existence of the pothole itself. It's all about the council's system. Did they have a proper working system in place to inspect their roads, spot that pothole, and get it fixed in a reasonable amount of time? That's the real question.
So what does a reasonable system actually look like? Well, the council has to show they have three main things sorted. First, a regular system for inspection. They can't just sit around waiting for people to complain. Second, a clear process for identifying problems when they do find them. And third, a logical way of prioritizing which repairs get done first, based on how serious they are.
All right, let's make this a bit more real. How does this whole system idea apply to the kind of hazards we see every day? Let's look at some classic examples.
First, let's talk potholes and broken pavements. You need to know about something called the defect threshold. See, the law gets that no road can be absolutely perfect, so not every little crack or tiny bump is going to be enough to make a legal claim. The problem has to be bad enough that it creates a predictable or foreseeable risk of someone getting hurt.
Now, what about slipping on ice? This is where that idea of prioritization really clicks into place. Councils have a priority system for gritting. Main roads and bus routes, they're primary, and they get treated the most. But your quiet residential street might be a lower priority, or maybe not even on the regular schedule at all. A claim could hinge on where you fell and whether the council followed its own reasonable plan.
And it's not just about roads and pavements. What about parks and leisure centers? Remember that Occupier's Liability Act? The council's duty there covers things like broken swings in a playground, deep holes left without a fence around them, or super slippery floors in a changing room.
So, let's say you've been injured and you're pretty sure the council messed up and failed in its duty. What do you actually do? Where do you even begin?
Okay, these are the absolute must-do first steps. Number 1, gather evidence. Get your phone out immediately. Take pictures of what caused the accident, the whole area, and get contact details for anyone who saw what happened. Number 2, get specialist legal advice, and do it quickly. These cases are tricky.
And 3, your solicitor will then send a formal letter of claim to the council, which officially kicks the whole process off.
And speaking of being quick, this is probably one of the most important things to remember. You are on the clock. In Scotland, you have exactly 3 years from the date of the accident to get a court action started. If you miss that deadline, your claim is pretty much dead in the water.
Now, one thing the council will often try to argue is that you were partly to blame. That you weren't looking where you were going. But the law is actually quite specific here. You're expected to take reasonable care, sure, but you're not expected to walk around in a state of constant vigilance, as if every single paving slab is a potential trap. You have a right to assume public spaces are reasonably safe.
When you boil it all down, what we're really talking about is a balancing act. On one hand, councils have a clear legal duty to keep us safe. But on the other, they're working with limited public money and just can't make every single pavement and road perfect. And that leaves us with a pretty big final question to think about. Is the current legal balance between protecting public safety and managing public funds actually in the right place?